You know,
What page are we on?
I have You know, college professors can throw things at you.
Yeah.
They can throw things at you. They can't hit you, but they can throw things at you. They can also ask you to get up and leave their class.
If their aim is bad enough,
It's the most embarrassing thing ever, even if it's not you, when a college professor tells you to get up and leave class. And then says, like, don't come back. Don't come back to my class.
Ever?
And you're done.
Then what do?
You're out of the
You have
class.
to do something like really bad.
It depends on who it is, but sometimes, yeah. I think that was three things that were the most earth-shaking to me my first semester, which one of them won't happen now. But professors that would smoke in class, that was always weird. I think all of mine smoked. So on their desk was a big old ashtray, and they smoked. That was weird to me. That they said cuss words, which was not weird to me because my mom said a lot of cuss words. But it just was weird to be in a classroom with someone that used curse words. And then the second one was that they could throw things at you and make you leave class and just say, get up and leave. Yeah. I don't think they can hit you, but they can throw things at you. Especially if you, most of the time it's sleeping people. If you want to know why, if you come in and sleep, they'll ask you to leave and don't come back. Yeah, that's pretty much the way that rolled. All right, we did we do handshake? Are we on page? Did we do Treaty of Portsmouth, San Francisco School Board, Great White Fleet? What?
Page 13.
Okay, see, this is what I'm telling you. I've already taught this to my regular U.S. history kids. That's why I don't know where I'm at. I forgot to mark my notes. Okay, so we have done none of that yet. Okay. Have we built the Panama Canal? Okay. Okay, gunboat. Okay. Woo, we got a lot to do. All right. On the creation of Panama and the gunboat diplomacy, we got a lot of stuff that is happening as far as the United States and their take on how to control, govern, and manipulate Latin and Central America, or South and Central America. And they're going to use lots of different ways to do that. One of the things that has to happen is somehow we have to get control of the territory of Panama in order to put the canal there. At this point, the French, again, are still trying to work within. We're going to purchase that. In the middle of the page 13, November 3rd, 1903 is the Panama Revolution. The United States forces do not allow the Colombian troops. So essentially what happens is the United States brings down a naval blockade and blocks the Isthmus of Panama, who is currently, the country of Panama is currently being controlled by Colombia. And so Colombia is not allowed in. And what the United States has really done is said to Colombian nationals, hey, you guys declare your independence. We're going to park some gunboats there. Colombia won't be able to come in, and you can guarantee your independence. And that, again, is what the United States does. It helps implement for the Panamanians an Independence Day. And on November 6th, Teddy Roosevelt extends recognition of Panama. So the United States recognizes Panama as a country, which again is important. There's a couple countries currently, like the United States can't recognize as like countries. We got this weird thing with Taiwan because China says Taiwan is there. So we have this really weird thing like, do we recognize Taiwan? So diplomatically, to recognize a country as a sovereign nation is very important. So kind of like in our Revolutionary War, where we had to make sure that countries recognized that we were independent from Great Britain. Same kind of thing. So we get a peace treaty And what happens on 3B is the United States would pay this new Panama Canal $40 million, and the zone would be widened from 6 to 10 miles. And essentially, from this point until Jimmy Carter's presidency, the United States owns the Panama Canal. That was what we wanted. It was one thing to build it, but it's a really important thing to own the Panama Canal. And we sign a lease, I don't know how long it is, how long the treaty is for us to own it, but that lease comes up during Jimmy Carter's presidency, and he has a really crucial diplomatic decision to make at that point, in which he does what was morally and ethically correct, bless you, and returns Panama back to itself. Politically, strategically, militarily, he took a lot of criticism, a ton of criticism, probably one of the reasons he was not reelected and lost to President Reagan, was his stance on abiding by the treaty that turned the Panama Canal back over to the Panamanians, who control that now. President Roosevelt's role in the Panama controversy becomes a very sticky point, because he is seen as interfering in international relations. And he claims, again, to take it, and the United States is going to suffer diplomatically. Latin America begins really, really resenting us at this point, because at this point we've taken Puerto Rico, we've taken Cuba, and now we've taken Panama. The canal is going to be complete in 1914 at a cost of $400 million. It will again be made safe by sanitation. We learn a lot about spreading of diseases like malaria, all that other stuff. The most important thing that's going to come out of this time period, especially though, is this addition to the Monroe Doctrine, called the Roosevelt Corollary. So just for definition purposes, a corollary is something you add to an official document. So let's say that you have a grandparent that is incredibly wealthy and very, very wealthy, and has a will all made out, and you are one of the beneficiaries. And then when you get married and you have children, a corollary will be added to that will that's saying now the offspring of this child will be added to the will. Rather than scrap the whole will and make another one, corollaries are attached. So this Roosevelt Corollary, this new attachment to the Monroe Doctrine, and the Monroe Doctrine says stay out of our hemisphere, will now take on some real ability to maintain it, right? When we passed the Monroe Doctrine, no one said any like, oh my gosh, yes, we better stay out of that hemisphere because the United States is going to do something. No one paid any attention. Now we have the ability to defend and make it part of our hemisphere, stay out. And so what Roosevelt adds to that corollary is this idea of the big stick policy. So motivation, TR felt that Germany and British would violate the Monroe Doctrine. So he creates this preventative intervention. The policy is, in future financial crisis concerning Latin American debt, United States would intervene. So now we're even moving it into an economic. So that becomes part of that Roosevelt corollary. It's not if we just think that politically you're entering into Latin America. Now we're going to add, if we think there's any economic debt or interest, we will intervene as well. We'll take over your custom houses, we'll pay off debts, and the goal again is to keep European powers out of the Western Hemisphere. So what happens? B2, the United States becomes the policeman of the Western Hemisphere. And I would highlight that, draw arrows, because that is a crucial change in the way that the United States takes on this hemisphere. We now police this hemisphere, bless you, and we're policing it to keep Europeans out. Specifically, we say Britain, but really it's Germany. Germany is on a rise to again become this giant superpower before World War I. It's a radical policy from what our former isolation policy was. We're going to isolate ourselves, keep to ourselves, not involve ourselves. Remember George Washington's entangling alliances? And we've really kind of done that for the better part. And now we will be this thing called the Colossus from the North. That is not a good nickname. It sounds good, like Colossus of the North, like we're the big. It is not a good nickname. It is seen as this overbearing country, and it will result in very bitter relations between the United States and Latin America. Again, this making sure you understand, because sometimes students mistake that Colossus like that's a big thing, like we're the great Colossus of the North. It is not a good nickname. It is a bad nickname. The coal area will be used to justify major U.S. interventions and repeated landings of the United States Marines. We will have Marines in Central America for the next 30 years, just randomly landing here in Costa Rica, in Nicaragua, in El Salvador. Not because those countries said, hey, help us out, but because we think that other countries are intervening. In 1905, a treaty gives the U.S. supervisory powers over the Dominican Republic, and now the Dominican Republic is a protectorate of the United States. They did not ask for help. Again, continuing to take over that area for the needs of the United States. Cuba, United States keeps tariffs high against Cuban sugar at the behest of U.S. sugar growers, resulting in recession. And as a result of that, Teddy Roosevelt's going to send Marines in 1906. And we will occupy Cuba 1917 and remain there until 1922. So we'll have Marine presence there. In the meantime, while all this is happening, way out east is this rising empire that will be known as the Rising Sun, Japan. Again, because of the nature of the isolated way that we study history, unless you've really studied Asian history, the emergence of Japan in 1914 is not a surprise. And that'll be one of the first things you learn here in World War II history in the United States, that we were not surprised by the attack. The only thing that we were surprised by was the date and the time. Japan had been telling us fairly wide open that they were unhappy with us and they were going to take measures that we would not like. The only thing that was very surprising was the time and the day. Japan had been working towards this empire for one purpose, is they need fuel and oil. Japan is an island. They had Western technology. They had built this huge military navy that needed oil and fuel, and they don't have it. What did have it was this little gigantic thing to their west, China and Russia. And so they began tactically from about 1902 until the beginning of World War II for them in the 1930s, invading and invading and invading, bless you. And the rest of the world, bless you, turns a blind eye to all of what they are doing in Asia. The reason Japan is the most hated Asian country is because of what it did in China, in Korea, in Manchuria, in the Philippines, everywhere they went. The Japanese were brutal, sadistic, and subjugated all of those people across the Southeast Asia. The first one's going to be their war with Russia, and it will be a earth-shattering war in that little teeny tiny Japan in less than a year defeats Russia, and it sends shockwaves throughout the world. Now, Japan's going to destroy all of the Russian fleet. Japanese will run short of money and men, which will be always part of their issue. And Teddy Roosevelt, is eager to prevent either side from gaining a monopoly in Asia because that monopoly is now, again, centered around oil. That is what is in Russia. That is what is in China. That's what everybody is looking for, is some kind of oil. Japan secretly asked Roosevelt to help sponsor a peace negotiation. And Teddy Roosevelt will do that and again, the significance of Portsmouth is that it's in New Hampshire. So we now, again, see a shift of diplomacy and political power into the United States. That this peace treaty is in the United States, not in Paris, not in Japan, or not in Russia. It is in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. We do not need to know all of the particulars, but what we do need to know is B3. Teddy Roosevelt receives the Nobel Peace Prize in 1906. Significant for the United States, significant for Teddy Roosevelt, significant for his ego, significant for the office of the President of the United States in creating that diplomacy that the office of the presidency now holds, the leader of the free world, right? We didn't just automatically begin, and hopefully you've seen, with Washington getting this prestigious connection with the office of the presidency. It didn't happen really until Teddy Roosevelt, and he does a lot to change the worldview of the office of the presidency of the United States, which is, again, why his face is on Mount Rushmore and why he is always, despite his major flaws, in that top 10, most of the time top 5 list of presidents, because he changes the worldview of the office of the presidency. All right, so the bottom of page 15, San Francisco School Board incident. I do not know why the College Board loves this thing so much, but they do. Again, first and foremost, it is an example of the United States nativism regarding Asians. So one thing in particular that makes this issue, I think, difficult in the study of U.S. history is that it really is a West Coast issue, right? Asians are not really rapidly spreading across the United States, nor do they settle very often on the East Coast. So it is very much a West Coast experience with this nativism regarding Asians. There will be lots of Japanese moving into the United States for various reasons. One of them will be, again, the tax burdens caused by the Russian. California, again, fearful of what happened with the Chinese, right? We already had the Chinese Exclusion Act. Fearful of the same thing with Japanese. So San Francisco said Asian children could not attend white school. You cannot be in school with white kids. People of Japan furious, and Teddy Roosevelt is concerned of California starting a war within itself. And so Teddy Roosevelt intervenes. Now, first you must think how important this must be for a president to intervene in a school board. So here is a political government question. Does the federal government have any power over local school boards? No. The answer is no. School boards are controlled by states. Federal government does not have any control over education in any state. It's why states all across the United States have different things to graduate, different classes you have to take, all that stuff. That's why when students move in from Illinois, they have all kinds of weird classes. Like they take U.S. history as sophomores as opposed to juniors. It's just everything is all weird. So they don't have control. So for a president to intervene in a school board incident is incredibly important. It says how important this nativism with Asian and specifically Japanese. So TR invited the entire San Francisco school board to the White House, and he coerced the Californians to repeal the order and accept what came to be known as a gentleman's agreement. So the second part of a gentleman's agreement, which I'm not sure in the 21st century everyone knows what that means, but A gentleman's agreement is a handshake. And most often you see these handshakes like in used car lots, like you shake hands and you agree, and both people abide by that handshake. There is not anything written, no paper. TR can't make them do anything, but that's what the provisions of this agreement was. Japan agreed to stop the flow of laborers to the United States. Californians agreed not to ban Japanese from public schools. The reason, again, for Japanese and this important of public school system is the fact that, as is the case in many of our immigrants, their children not being allowed to attend schools in their own country. That's one of the big draws for immigrants into the United States is our public education school system, that their children are not allowed to attend school in their own country. So the United States becomes this place where not only they can get ahead, but more importantly, their children can get ahead. And from the turn of the century, that will be one of the factors that draws so many people to the United States, not just hope for themselves, but more importantly, hope for a better generation for their children. I have lots of friends who are from Western European nations. One of my really good friends is from Scotland, and they made the decision to stay in the United States to raise their children so their children could have a public education in the United States. Not that they wouldn't have one in Scotland, but in Scotland, what happens at a certain point, as I've mentioned several times, their schools take two diverging paths. You either stay on an academic path or you go into a vocational. And it is not a choice like how you have in high school to have vocational classes or academic classes. It's based on test scores. And the two friends that I have, one, her husband is a chemical engineer, incredibly smart dude, but he's like, the pressure of that as a kid is overwhelming. And the fact that my kid can just go to school and just pick stuff that they want made them decide to stay in the United States rather than live in Scotland because of the education system. So that again is important. Page 16, United States and Japanese relations in the 1920s. Fearing Japanese perception of U.S. weakness, we do not want to appear to be weak. Teddy Roosevelt sends this Great White Fleet. There is about 17 United States battleships in this Great White Fleet, and he will send them to circumnavigate the world. Again, going back to the fulfilling of Captain Mahan's, whoever controls the seas control the world. So a little side story, just because I like Teddy Roosevelt so much. I think I told you that on the day that Teddy Roosevelt's wife died, his mother died. And they also had a little baby, Alice. And Alice kind of got shoved around because Alice did not go with her dad out west. Alice, in 1907, was a very, very attractive young woman in Washington, D.C., and she would have been referred to in that time period as fast, meaning she went to a lot of parties and she drank in front of people and she smoked in public and she had lots of boyfriends. So Teddy Roosevelt needed to get her out of Washington, D.C. fast, and he makes a very dumb parent decision and decides, let's get her out and put her on this Great White Fleet and send her out on a world cruise on ships with a bunch of Navy men. Did not reduce scandal. It increased scandal a lot. It increased scandal. And for the most part, Alice was always getting back at her father because her father remarried, had more children, and she kind of came like the back burner kid. So she was the act out kid. She was the one that would have been on Dr. Phil. Like, why won't my kid pay attention? Why does my car get stolen every night by my kid? Yeah, that would have been Alice. She had a lot of fun. And the news had a lot of fun reporting about Alice on these ships. It is the Great White Fleet is the beginning of the naval presence of the United States. It is incredibly important in the public relations of the United States. And it, again, is very important for Teddy Roosevelt to project this image. Teddy Roosevelt regarded the voyage of his fleet as his most important contribution to peace. meaning here's our ships, don't do anything. Our last couple of things, dollar diplomacy under President Taft. Please don't be confused that dollar diplomacy means that we're giving dollars. Dollar diplomacy means we are protecting our dollars. So if we have investments in Latin America that we think are being threatened, the United States, again, will send in the Marines. We'll look at China later in this. And we are not going to do imperialism under Wilson because we'll get that during Wilson and when we get to the progressive era. Okay? Please make sure on page 19 that you have looked through those essay questions and you can understand and answer them on paper in your head. Number 6 we'll get when we get to the progressive era, okay? All right, so let me see what I have as the secret code for our quiz. And last day for you guys to vote for class flag quotes, because I'm going to have that ready tomorrow to get one final quote for both those of you in Euro last year and, I have 2022. And those for APUSH this year. Our access code is TR, capital T, capital R.